I'm Judy Stiles. Thank you for joining us on Newsmakers. Well, it's been more than 5 years since the devastating tornado hit Joplin, and if you drive around town, you see a lot of things being rebuilt, but there's still a lot of things underway. And today we're finding out from the city's perspective with Patty Heagel, going to tell us about the CDBG-DR project. So I want to introduce you. Thank you for being here today.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
I guess we need to start out for the public. When they hear the initial CDBG-DR, what are we talking about?
Okay, that's a HUD, Housing and Urban Development.
Okay. Federal government.
Federal government acronym, and it stands for the Community Development Block Grant Program, which has been around since 1974, and it's kind of a bricks and mortar type program that's available to communities, with its major emphasis being to assist lower income people. The DR portion is disaster recovery. When Congress was looking at ways to help with some of the natural disasters that were happening around the country, they were looking for a way to provide that through a program that could be most beneficial to a community to use, that would have the best framework. And again, the Community Development Block Grant Program, you have to meet one of 3 national objectives: benefit low and moderate income people, eliminate slum and blight, and or meet an urgent need. And certainly that's where the disaster recovery portion comes in.
So it comes through the federal government, and Joplin now has funds, and people ask, how much money did Joplin receive? Do we have a dollar figure for that?
Oh, we do. Actually, we received 2 grants. The first grant was approximately $45 million, and Joplin was very grateful for that and started planning for using those dollars to the best possible way for the Joplin community. But shortly after that, we received a second grant, and that one was for $113 million. So actually, we received $158 million in CDBG-DR funds to be used for the recovery in Joplin, which is a very significant amount for a community this size.
So a big help from the federal government to helping rebuild and put things back together. And I know there's been a long process. As mentioned, it's been more than 5 years since the tornado. It's been a long road to not only receiving the word that you have the funding, but you had to go through some specific steps to get where you're at.
Absolutely. And the steps are there to protect the taxpayer, obviously, and during some other disasters, maybe the funds weren't overseen as the way they should have been or could have been. So there are a lot of regulations and what we call cross-cutting regulations that are tied to these funds. They're very specific as to how you can use them, and what procedures you go through to use them, and how you document that you've done what you said you were going to do, meets one of those objectives, and then to provide all of that closeout information back to the federal government.
So how many years in the making have we been between receiving word to where we're at now?
Well, actually, late 2012 is when we received the first grant. The second one came the next year. And the first thing you have to do is provide HUD with what we call an action plan. They want to know how you're going to use these funds. Now, right after disaster, that's a little hard to say. Their emotions are high, expectations are high, and there's certain community needs that the community believe they need.
There's a lot of needs all at once.
Right. So you kind of package that initially and for HUD to look at and approve. The thing about the second grant that we received, the $113 million, it had additional strings in terms of how we plan it out, in that they wanted the funds spent quickly. There are some disaster recovery programs out there that are still open after, let's say, 10 years or more. And so whatever you ask out of your $113 million, whatever you ask for at a time, you have to spend that within 2 years.
So they want a project approved and completed within a reasonable time period.
And in September 2019, that's it. You have either spent it all or whatever you haven't spent goes away. So that required even more strategic planning in terms of what projects can we do when, how quickly can we get them out, which 2-year time frame would those projects best fit in.
Some of these tie together almost like a domino effect. You have to do Project A before you can do Project B.
This is true. For example, infrastructure, there was a lot of damage done to sanitary sewers. You don't see that.
We go drive them over all the day.
That's right. But between the trees being uprooted and the heavy equipment afterwards, there's a lot of damage. We have been probably close to 2 years in the field repairing sanitary sewers. That's something you don't see. But
you can't build back on top until it's good underneath.
That's right. So you don't want to be paving streets over a sewer that needs to be repaired.
Now, I understand you have certain categories as far as projects. So
Yes.
you have this big project, but you have to break them down into organizations or categories.
We do. There's 4 different project areas, we like to say. You know, there are housing projects. There are public facility and infrastructure projects. Public facilities are things such as the park.
Right.
Other community facilities, such as the Early Childhood Center, cross lines, economic development, because HUD recognizes that as an important recovery need to
bring
bounce
jobs back into
to
the
bring
community.
jobs back. And then of course we are allowed to spend money on planning and administering the $158 million, which quite frankly takes nearly an army to get done because of all of the strings attached.
So you have to make sure you're doing it correctly, or the government's going to say, we're not going to. Is it a reimbursement type system?
It's reimbursement. So the City of Joplin is required to expend the money first and then be reimbursed for it as we go along.
So if you don't do it right, they're not going to write you that check to pay back.
True. We're monitored closely, and while the projects themselves and the activities are very exciting and we feel are very beneficial to the community, a lot of our time is spent on making sure we're doing it appropriately, following the right steps, and giving everybody all of the opportunities to be a part of that.
Now, being part of the decision of which projects to include, I know that you went through a process, and eventually, I guess, it went to the city council before we said, this is what we're going to do.
Right. As I said, you know, you start out early on thinking maybe we can do this, that, or the other thing. And some of the projects were good projects, but really didn't qualify well through the CDBG-DR program. So the city and our consultant administrator came up with a way to vet projects. Okay. And we listed those that CART had been concerned about, that we had heard about from other citizens, from city council, anybody who had an idea of maybe this is what we should be doing with the dollars. And then we visited each of those stakeholders, you know, in terms of...
So a lot of face-to-face discussion.
Lots of face-to-face discussion. And we gathered all of that information, and then we went through a vetting process in which we listed 8 different benefits to that could be associated with the project, and maybe 8 different risk factors that would be associated with the project.
You have to balance them all out.
Right, and we weighed those according to which ones we thought were more important than the others. And then we applied that against each project and came up with a value. And we presented that to council and gave them the opportunity to go through the same scenario to see if they agreed with how those projects wound up being ranked. I think for me, one of the most interesting things that came out of that was the fact that, you know, $158 million, how are we going to spend all of that? What are we going to spend it on? When we got done with that list of projects, we were well over $330 million.
So the wish list was here, and you had this much to spend, right?
So, you know, obviously, we could have done more. We would have liked to have done more than what we had the funds for. But council very diligently looked at all of that and worked with the staff at a couple of public sessions also in determining which projects they would like to see funded and at what level. And it was very much based on that non-judgmental vetting process that we had gone through.
Great. So now you're at the phase and we have things underway and you have a new website. So I want
Yes,
to
we
let
do.
the audience know about your new website that you have. So tell me.
Right. We call it a dashboard, but when you go to joplinmo.org/CDBG CDBG-DR, you will come to a lot of information about the program, and you click on the list of projects. It'll give you some narrative, and you can click on what they call the dashboard, and it's an interactive.
Okay, so if we can look at the dashboard while we're talking, kind of let the
Right.
audience see it. So basically, if they want to know what's happening on a certain street, you'll see.
Yes, absolutely. If they can plug in a street address, or they can scroll through the projects that are listed there and pull each one up. And on the map, you can click on additional details, so you can
So click on a project, it tells you where it's at. Here's where we're working on it.
Right. It'll tell you here it is. The proposed time frame, we believe that things will be accomplished to complete that project. And we also have a tab, for example, vendors. So you can know what contractors or nonprofit agencies are working on that particular project. And there's also contact numbers listed there. So if you want additional information, you know who to call and get that information.
So really trying to put a lot of information out for the public.
Yes. It took some time to put that together and to make it workable, but in fact, our regional HUD representative said she thought it was a very valuable tool, and she wished HUD would require all disaster communities to provide the public something like this.
The public wants to know. They hear
Right.
about these things at the city council meetings, and then
Yes.
they see a little work around town. But this lets them see everything you have planned on that
Everything
dashboard.
we have planned and the time frame for each one, so they know if they are not seeing something, that they see it maybe, oh, this is planned for fall of 2017 or whatever.
And I noticed you had little bars off to the side to show perhaps how much money is being spent on
Yes,
each project.
Yes. So you can also see progress in that term. That we have our estimated budget, and then you can see how much of that we have spent. Now, those numbers are updated on a monthly basis, for example, the dollar amounts.
So they can each month follow up on what's happening. So various projects, do you have some that you have kind of checked off the list that you say, we've completed some of those projects in there?
Well, we have a couple successful projects, or actually several successful projects we believe that are complete or very near completion for Joplin. And one that is very visible, of course, is Mercy Park.
Recently opened to the grand opening.
Yes, the grand opening, and of course that's located on the former St. John's Hospital site. It is a park that City Council was given several options as to what they would like to see happen there. It's what we call passive park. It's not a playground park. That opportunity is right across the street at Cunningham.
Right.
But wildflowers, native grasses, walking trails, places to sit, the pond and the fountains, and right next to Mercy's Memorial on top of the hill. It's a very peaceful, enjoyable park, and we saw people walking in it way before construction was complete, and I know it's going to get a lot of use. It's located in an area where there's a lot of synergy going on. Obviously, Irving
School right next door, down the
right
street.
next door. There's now a neighborhood market in that area. We're still looking at senior housing possibilities on that corner. And the Early Childhood Center will be in that area. The Autism Center recently built, and of course we have the new medical center coming in. And so besides serving the neighborhood around it and providing people that have moved back in that open space.
And that being an area, when we saw the drawing or the map up there, you really have, I guess we call the tornado impact zone that you had.
We do. That was defined internally we call it the fish, because if you look at it, it starts out very narrowly, broadens in the center, and then kind of tapers
down at the other end.
Right, and that is the area in which we concentrate. That's where we can definitely say it was impacted by the disaster, and therefore we are doing this. There are other activities we do outside the tornado zone, but we're doing them because of the disaster itself. They've been affected because of the tornado.
Okay. So we'll talk about some of those, but also within that, you mentioned the Early Childhood Education Center, and that's another thing that people have heard about, and it sounds like it's really a cooperative venture as well.
It is a cooperative venture between the Joplin School District and the City of Joplin with their CDBG DR funds, and the state of Missouri. And the state of Missouri also has received CDBG DR funds, and so they had funds available to partner with the school district and ourselves to construct this early childhood center. So that's been an excellent project.
Teamwork effort, and that one is under...
That is underway. There have been designs brought forward to the school board, and we are anticipating actually that they go out for bids for construction by the end of the month, September 28th. They're hoping to go to bid.
So they're under that same type of timeline. They want to get that built so they can use it.
They are. So
working that together. You also mentioned earlier Crosslines.
Yes.
Which is, people, well, how does Crosslines tie into this?
Right.
And they have a new facility as well.
They have a new facility as well. They outgrew the facility they had. And with Crosslines, one of the things that happened, there was another nonprofit in the community that was providing the federal food commodity program to those in need. They had to drop that program because they found other venues for providing assistance to the public. So Crosslines took in that program. Because of the tornado, the other nonprofit agency had dropped it.
So this was a need. We no longer had this community.
This is a need, and it was a need in the community. So it greatly increased the number of people coming to the facility, greatly increased the need for cooler space and properly handling the food products coming in. And as a result of that, they looked for a larger building, basically in the same area where they were serving people. And the disaster recovery funds was able to help them rehabilitate that building into the wonderful facility they have now.
So now they can serve the community and with these additional resources to help.
Definitely. They have the cooler and freezer space needed. They've been able to set up their food bank in a way that the government had been asking them to set it up. And then they're also able to provide all the other services they had been providing, including clothing and household goods and some utility assistance, et cetera.
Now, speaking of households, I know that early on we were hearing about projects for homes and rehab, as well as people purchasing homes, home buyer assistance.
Yes.
Is that part of the funding as well? With that?
Definitely is. The Joplin Home Buyer Assistance Program, or JHAP as most people know it, has been extremely successful in repopulating the recovery zone. In fact, it's much more successful than we had anticipated.
More people than you thought would be coming using it.
Yes, yes. We were very concerned about repopulating the area after the tornado, and when we developed this down payment assistance program, that gave us the vehicle to encourage people to do so. And as part of that, HUD also granted a waiver because we are the majority of our funds are to go to benefit low and moderate
There's a certain
income
requirement
persons,
there once again, right?
which are people that are about 80% of the average income of the community. They allowed us to go up to 120% of the average income, which allowed us to provide a nice mix back into the area. We have helped people close on well over 500 homes now. And if you drive down 26th Street, 20th Street, and look in either direction, you can see all the new rooftops. And I think that is just amazing.
So that's directly affecting the people, the homeowners.
Yes, yes. And one of the things we found that there were A very large percentage of those new homeowners had not been homeowners before. We have first-time home buyers. We have a lot of female-headed home buyers. And we have people that have moved back into the community also. So that one is kind of winding down. We're watching the dollars very closely to see how much, we have people in the pipeline. We had stopped taking applications. We do still have a waiting list, and we do believe we'll have the opportunity to start going down that waiting list, but we're not quite ready to do
you
that
have to finish
yet.
these before you can start with new ones and so forth. Well, talking about people and jobs, I know you also have an area that's outside of the zone, or the area, the training center, which people remember where Franklin Tech moved post-tornado. Tell us about the downtown project and how that ties into this.
That's a great project, and that's one of the ways to, number one, help those that may be underemployed or unemployed, or people that are working for a company but maybe need some more skills to move up in that company. This is the Advanced Training and Technology Center, and it's being developed as training opportunities for some basic skills such as welding, advanced welding, advanced manufacturing.
So these are skills that some of our local manufacturing companies say we need.
That's right. These are skills that are needed in the community, and they are also skills that would assist a lot of people in moving forward with improving.
They have those skills, they get better lifestyle, they have more income.
Yes. So we are working with the Joplin Chamber of Commerce. We assisted them in purchasing that building and renovating that building, and soon we will be assisting them in purchasing the equipment necessary to provide the training. They in turn have partnered with Crowder College, who's been a very good partner for them in determining at-risk high school students ready to leave, and what are their opportunities going to be, and to target other individuals that could take advantage of this training center. The Workforce Investment Board will also be located there, so it's almost like a full one-stop shop for individuals looking for help in getting the training they need to become a more skilled laborer or
So this definitely ties into the economic development aspect of what you were talking about.
Definitely tied to that.
Now, earlier you mentioned infrastructure. I talked about the stormwater and that type of thing, but what else about roads? There's a lot of roads when I looked at that list, that there's a lot of roads still to be paved and sidewalks to be
Yes, that is the brunt of what's left to be done in the area, and probably took the most upfront planning to determine how much work, where, and how to phase it. As we mentioned earlier, there are more needs than there were dollars available. So we contracted with engineering firms to help us determine what kind of work we can get accomplished. They went out and ranked all the streets, all the curb and gutter, all the sidewalk.
So really did an inventory of what you have and what you need.
Total inventory. And then from there, they took the worst and laid that out to see where that was. And then from there, we looked at the amount of money that council had set aside for infrastructure work, which is approximately $60 million. And they're creating smaller projects within the zone.
Okay, so they have an area, we're going to do this piece within that area.
So what we'll be seeing is, if you look on the dashboard, a number of smaller projects within the zone that will be bid out. Some may include overlaying the streets, some may include curb and gutters, some may include repairing the sidewalk, some may include making sure there's a connector, but, so that...
So people can get through the area?
That's right, so it's walkable. Stormwater improvements, because some of that is above ground, with the culverts and that type of thing. And and also that way we can bid them in phases, so we're not overburdening contractors out there, and then we can be assured of getting competitive bids for the work to be done. Some of that work will start being advertised later this fall.
Okay, so that kind of work will be turning the dirt more or less more next spring as the construction season starts.
So unfortunately, we think there's a lot of construction out there now. There's going to be some more.
So if people in Joplin want to know, I see the cones going up on the road or the barrels going out, you can go to the dashboard and find out what's happening on such and such a street.
Absolutely. And we're also improving Main Street and 20th Street to the extent we can with the dollars we have. And Main Street will be the first street that will be tackled, so there'll be a lot of coordination in getting through Main Street while we're doing that. But the end product will be very good.
Anytime you're dealing with a major thoroughfare through town, you're gonna have people have to be cooperative and working together and tying that together. Well, I know you have a lot of information for the public, and this dashboard's really helping communicate with the public then.
Yes, it is. And we do hope that the public is using it. And if they have questions, that they use those contact numbers and find out more information. And of course, down at City Hall, we're always willing to assist people through all of that.
If they call you on the phone, you can talk to them as well. Remind us once again what kind of timetable we're looking at. Like we said, there are some deadlines that you have to face to get these done. Right.
Right now we're under like 4 different deadlines, 2-year deadlines, but it is by September of 2019 that we have to have all of these funds expended. And we have what we call an integrated master schedule. It is a more detailed schedule off of, let's say, off of the dashboard that we know absolutely every single step necessary to complete a project, and there's about 80 some. And that we've phased it and we review it on a weekly basis to see if anything's moved or not moved, and as a result of that, we are very confident that we're going to be able to get that done.
And from your perspective, there's a lot of people working at City Hall behind the scenes that we don't see, keeping track of these things.
Absolutely. There's a team of 5 of us in disaster recovery, funded by disaster recovery, and who will go away
when disaster recovery is funded.
which is a good thing. And then just because of the magnitude of overseeing these grants, no matter if it's Joplin or if it's something with Sandy or anything else going on, it takes a great deal of effort. So we also have a consultant administrator that helps that with us, and they're a good go-to. They help us with compliance and also keeping on top of everything in that master schedule.
Well, it sounds like, as we said earlier, there's a lot happening, still to happen as well in the City of Joplin. Patty, thank you very much for joining me today.
You're more than welcome. Thank you, Judy.
You're welcome. And I'd like to thank you, the viewers, for joining us this week on Newsmakers. I'm Judy Stiles. Hope you can join me again next week at the same time on this station. We'll see you then.